Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into the world of a true, a singular original, a man whose mind just moved so incredibly fast. It often felt like he was running the 4-minute mile of comedy while everyone else was, maybe jogging.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're talking about Jonathan Harshman Winters III, born 1925, passed away in 2013. Just an undisputed pioneer whose whole approach to comedy really revolutionized television and stand-up forever.
Yeah, his career spanned over 6 incredible decades, which is amazing in itself. And what's so fascinating about Winters is that he wasn't just, like, pigeonholed as a comedian,
Right.
The sources, they all confirmed he was this acclaimed actor, a published author, even a really prolific visual artist.
Which is wild.
But you're totally right. His enduring genius, the thing that really defined him, it lay completely in his ability to invent, just right there on the spot, in front of millions. He fundamentally changed, like, the whole relationship between the performer, the audience, and that specific moment.
So our mission today, as we kind of go through all the source material we've gathered, is to understand precisely how this spontaneous genius really emerged. We want to explore how he totally revolutionized the landscape of stand-up, how his deep and, really well-documented personal struggles with mental health actually fed rather than hindered his explosive creative output.
Yeah, that's a crucial part of it.
And the massive, maybe sometimes underappreciated legacy he left for basically every improviser who works today.
Yeah, and we absolutely have to establish his monumental status right from the start, just to give context for his impact, Winters wasn't just popular, he was, well, revered.
Revered is the right word.
He received the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor in 1999, which, as you know, is pretty much the highest honor for lasting impact in American comedy.
The absolute peak.
He got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame way back in 1960, and he won both a Primetime Emmy Award and 2 Grammy Awards for his comedy recordings, which were groundbreaking at the time.
That combination of honors, it really speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Right.
Revered by critics, beloved by audiences, recognized by his peers. He cultivated this talent that felt completely spontaneous, just out of nowhere, yet clearly stemmed from this deeply intelligent, almost dizzyingly fast mind.
Exactly.
So let's start at the very beginning. Back in Ohio, where the complex roots of this creative powerhouse first took hold.
Right. Jonathan Winters was born in Dayton, Ohio, in 1925. And his family, initially anyway, was really rooted deeply in the region's establishment. They traced their lineage back to Valentine Winters, who actually founded the Winters National Bank.
Oh, wow. Okay. So a banking family.
Yeah, so that background implies, a certain expectation of privilege, maybe stability.
Yeah.
Which makes the turmoil that came later all the more jarring.
Right, because the family fortunes, which were tied to that old financial structure, they basically collapsed during the fallout of the Great Depression. So that stable environment he was born into, it just dissolved pretty quickly. Created a really volatile childhood environment, not the kind of sheltered experience you might associate with families of early TV stars, maybe.
Oh, far from it. The sources really detail a childhood defined by significant emotional turmoil. His parents separated when Jonathan was only 7 years old.
Just 7?
Wow.
Yeah.
And his father, well, he struggled with alcoholism, which undoubtedly contributed to the instability. After the separation, his mother moved him to Springfield, Ohio, where they went to live with his maternal grandmother.
Okay.
So that displacement, that kind of fractured family environment, that really seems to have been the crucible for his whole creative response.
And he spoke so candidly about feeling isolated during this time. He actually noted, "Mother and Dad didn't understand me, I didn't understand them." He felt adrift in what he called a strange kind of arrangement. It just sounds like an extremely lonely period where connection was really missing.
Precisely. And the need to fill that void, that seems to have led directly to the genesis of his performance art. Alone in his room, the source material explains how he started creating this entire universe of characters and scenarios.
Just by himself?
Yeah, he started interviewing himself, developing these different personae that would later populate his routines. This private world wasn't just like him messing around, it was his necessary emotional outlet.
And he also started developing that signature skill set, which went way beyond just voices, right?
Right.
The sources mention he would entertain his high school friends by developing this whole repertoire of strange sound effects, like imitating a high-stakes race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
That specific example is amazing.
To be able to create that whole atmosphere, the roaring engines, the dynamics of the race, just through sound, it suggests this profound ability for observation and mimicry, even when he was really young.
And this leads us right to that critical analysis, the link between his pain and his performance. Winters openly admitted that his entire adult life, this kind of ferocious drive to be funny, to generate laughter, was a direct response to the profound sorrow and pain caused by his parents' divorce and the loneliness that followed.
He described confronting kids who ridiculed him for not having a father around. He shared this memory, it's quite poignant, of deciding between going to a building or a tree just to weep in despair before making this conscious choice that he had to fight the despair with laughter. It positions his comedy not as some frivolous talent, but as a deeply necessary coping mechanism, like a battle against internal chaos.
It connects his creative genius directly to that source of internal noise and pain, which is, a very modern way of looking at creativity now, but maybe not so much then.
Right.
It wasn't until he was 17 that he got sort of a structural break from this internal pressure. He quit high school in 1943 to join the U.S. Marine Corps.
Oh, okay. World War II era.
Exactly. Served 2.5 years in the Pacific Theater during World War II, achieving the rank of corporal.
That must have been a fascinating juxtaposition, right? The chaotic internal world of characters suddenly subjected to the rigid discipline of the Marine Corps during wartime.
You have to imagine. When he returned, he used the GI Bill, attended Kenyon College, and then really focused on his artistic side by studying cartooning at the Dayton Art Institute.
Ah, the art connection again.
Yeah. And it was at the Art Institute that he met Eileen Schotter. They got married in September 1948.
And that marriage, it provides this perfect, almost high-stakes origin story for his professional career, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a perfect bridge to our next section, Section 2, the invention of an art form.
Because the start of his professional career, it sounds like something out of a classic Hollywood script or maybe like a desperate vaudeville routine. It was 6 or 7 months into his marriage in 1948, and the source material really stresses they were absolutely flat broke.
Yeah, completely impoverished. Poor enough that when Winters lost his wristwatch, they just couldn't afford to replace it.
Wow, a wristwatch.
But Eileen, his wife, she was already this profound believer in his raw, untapped talent. So she didn't buy him a watch. She pushed him, encouraged him to enter a local talent contest. And the first prize?
Let me guess, a wristwatch.
A new wristwatch, exactly.
And he won it. That single, spontaneous, and probably slightly terrifying performance just set the entire machine in motion. It's an incredible story of talent meeting just sheer necessity.
The momentum was immediate. That local win quickly led to him getting jobs as a disc jockey, first on Wing in Dayton, then Wise in Springfield.
Back on the airwaves.
But the confines of a traditional DJ role, well, they couldn't hold him. He was supposed to introduce songs, read temperatures.
Standards.
But his spontaneous ad-libs, the different persona he started developing even then, his antics, they quickly just took over the programming. The show became less about the music and more about Johnny Winters, as he was known, just being Johnny Winters. He did 2.5 years of this on WBNS-TV in Columbus as well.
But, the big stage always calls for talent like that. So with only $56.46 in his pocket, which even adjusted for inflation is not a lot of money.
No, not at all.
He moved to Greenwich Village in New York City. And crucially, he made this promise to his wife, Eileen, that he would return to Dayton if he hadn't made it within 1 year.
Talk about pressure.
That's a serious commitment and just a huge gamble on raw talent.
The pressure was immense, but the talent, well, it delivered. His breakthrough came pretty quickly, right after he started performing under the revised professional name Jonathan.
Ah, so he dropped the Johnny.
Yeah. His work with Alistair Cook on the CBS show Omnibus, that sort of paved the way.
Yeah.
His earliest network TV appearance was in 1954. But what happened just 2 years later, in 56, that fundamentally changed television history.
This is a point that I think often gets lost when people just talk about his characters, his technical pioneering. He didn't just adapt to the medium, he actually helped define its future capabilities.
Absolutely. In 1956, he hosted The Jonathan Winters Show, and RCA selected that show as the platform for the first public demonstration of color videotape technology.
Wow. Okay, that's huge.
Think about the significance. This wasn't just some dry technical showcase. Winters, the ultimate improviser, immediately saw the comedic potential of this brand new technology.
He didn't just see it, he used it.
Right. He used the color videotape, specifically its ability to edit and layer images, to appear simultaneously as two separate characters. He'd stand on one side of a split screen, bantering with himself on the other side.
He essentially invented the video stunt, or what we now recognize as the split-screen comedy effect. It's a staple of sketch comedy digital media today.
And he was doing it in 1956?
He was utilizing the medium's future capabilities before almost anyone else even grasped that the technology had comedic applications. It just shows his genius was visual and technical, not just verbal.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And his unpredictability, which, yeah, it might have worried some network executives.
Yeah, you can imagine.
That was exactly what made him a favorite of the late-night hosts who thrived on that spontaneous energy. He was a constant on The Tonight Show with Jack Paar from 57 to 62.
And the legend of the pranks started here, too, right? He famously pulled off that elaborate stunt where he impersonated then-President John F. Kennedy over the telephone.
Yes, calling into the show.
Going into the show to speak with Paar. I mean, that kind of bold, high-wire act just spoke to his willingness to cross any boundary for a laugh.
And that paved the way for his later, maybe even more defining chemistry with Johnny Carson. Winters was a constant and a clear favorite on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson.
Yeah, those appearances are legendary.
And what's crucial for us, and for you listening to grasp, is that his material was never scripted. Never. It was 100% improvisational.
That required an incredible degree of confidence in him, the performer, but also tremendous skill from the interviewer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Carson, the master, often had to work overtime just to provide the structural scaffolding.
Totally.
Using those open-ended questions to kind of tease out the character's backstory, because Winters was just showing up as someone entirely new, fully formed, every single time he sat down on that couch.
It was a tightrope walk every single time. Carson was acting as the necessary anchor, asking the right question at the right moment to give the audience a handhold, so they could follow Winters down whatever comedic rabbit hole he was digging.
That dynamic relied entirely on Winters' unique ability to maintain character consistency while operating at this completely frenetic, spontaneous pace. It's incredible to watch.
And while he was conquering late night, his voice work became instantly iconic. And, let's be honest, incredibly lucrative too. We have to talk about his commercial work.
Oh yeah, the commercials gave his character such longevity and wide appeal.
For instance, from 1959 to 1964, he was the sole voice behind those beloved television commercials for Utica Club beer. He created the distinct voices for the Talking Beer Steins, Schultz, and Dooley.
Schultz and Dooley, I remember those.
They became household names,
Yeah.
far transcending the actual product they were advertising.
He also maintained that incredibly long-running dig as the dapper garbage man for Hefty brand trash bags, known for his specific, almost aristocratic pronunciation of collecting the garbage.
Yeah. That character was just a masterclass in making the mundane totally absurd, turning a simple product spokesperson role into, like, a piece of performance art.
He was just a character machine. And this era also coincided with his dedicated recording career on Verve Records. He launched with The Wonderful World of Jonathan Winters in 1960.
And he had the kind of sustained relevance that very few comedians ever achieve, releasing successful comedy albums basically every decade for over 50 years. He amassed 11 Grammy nominations in total, including 8 just for Best Comedy Album.
Wow, 8 for Best Comedy Album. That's consistency.
Yeah.
Speaking of those albums and his pantheon of creations, let's now transition into Section 3 and really try to define his unique comedy style and those signature personae that became legendary staples in American humor.
Yeah, the sources consistently define him as the pioneer of improvisational stand-up comedy, possessing that, quote, seemingly bottomless reservoir of creative energy. He was just a phenomenal master of mimicry, capable of instantly embodying figures from John Wayne and Cary Grant to James Cagney and Groucho Marx, sometimes shifting between them in a single breath.
But the key distinction, which he always stressed himself, was that he wasn't really interested in the traditional structure of a joke, like setup, punchline.
Right.
He was quoted saying, "I was fighting for the fact that you could be funny without telling jokes," which was pretty subversive in an era when most stand-ups relied so heavily on pre-written material.
Absolutely. And he considered himself foremost a writer, even more than a stand-up comedian. That's such a powerful insight into his process, I think.
A writer first. Interesting.
When he improvised, he was constructing narrative, building a world, not just delivering gags. He idolized writers known for their sophisticated humor and absurdity, specifically naming James Thurber as a major influence.
Thurber.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So his goal wasn't just belly laughs, it was observational, often absurd, and always character-driven social critique, kind of in the style of Thurber.
Exactly.
That explains the immense breadth of his characters then. He created this legendary pantheon of personae, which included everything from, like, nerve-shattered airline pilots trying to hide their fear
Hilarious.
to disgruntled Westerners, hillbillies, arrogant city slickers, and, my personal favorite, those judgmental Martians.
The Martians were brilliant, but two characters in particular completely transcended his stage and television work and became true cultural icons. We absolutely have to start with Maude Frickert.
Ah, Maude Frickert, yes.
Yeah.
The seemingly sweet little old lady who, the second she opened her mouth, revealed the most barbed, acerbic tongue in show business. She was just a masterclass in inverting expectations.
She was named, quite appropriately, for the comedic actress Maude Frickert. And Maude was so brilliantly developed that she achieved this pop culture immortality really on her own terms.
You really did.
She was featured in animated form on the new Scooby-Doo movies. And years later, Winters brought her back in his 2010 book, Maude Frickert Tells All.
That longevity just proves that Maude wasn't just some gimmick, right? She was a complete, compelling character with this consistent, if very critical, worldview.
Totally. And then there was the unforgettable bumpkin farmer, Elwood P. Suggins.
Elwood P. Suggins, the quintessential country bumpkin whose entire existence seems centered around the farm and the most basic of needs. His defining, almost philosophical catchphrase was,
I think eggs 24 hours a day.
I think eggs 24 hours a day. It's those specific, strange details that make the characters so memorable. They aren't generic archetypes. They feel like fully observed, slightly bizarre individuals.
And his dedication to this craft, it paid off across multiple generations. His recording career really cemented his status as a lasting genius. As we mentioned, 11 total Grammy nominations.
Incredible.
He finally won the Grammy Award for Best Spoken Comedy Album in 1996 for Cranky Calls.
Cranky Calls, right.
He also picked up a Grammy for Best Album for Children much earlier in 1975 for his contribution to an adaptation of The Little Prince.
Wow, the range there. From Cranky Calls to children's literature, that's a stunning example of his adaptability.
Absolutely.
The recording career is a perfect metric of his endurance, I think. But it also brings us to the source of some of that enduring energy, which leads us into section 4.
Yeah.
The shadow of genius.
Okay.
This involves the complexity that fueled so much of his output, his struggles with mental health.
Guys, absolutely vital context for understanding him. Jonathan Winters was one of the very first major public figures, a celebrity on primetime television, to go public with his personal struggles with mental illness. He suffered from nervous breakdowns and was diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
In the 1950s and 60s, that level of transparency was just almost unheard of. And it certainly carried immense cultural risk back then.
Oh, a huge risk. And he didn't shy away from discussing the stigma either. He noted that he felt profoundly marked and judged as a result of being so open about his illness.
The hospitalization details provided in the sources are pretty sobering. He spent 8 months in a private psychiatric hospital in 1959 and was hospitalized again shortly thereafter in 1961.
Yeah. But what truly sets Winters apart, I think, is how he almost immediately began processing and integrating these obscure, painful references into his professional routines right away.
He used comedy not just to cope, but to kind of reclaim the narrative, didn't he? The most famous example comes from that 1960 comedy album, The Wonderful World of Jonathan Winters, during his iconic flying saucer routine.
Right. In the middle of this completely frenetic, totally spontaneous performance about Martian's landing, he just casually mentions to the audience that if he wasn't careful, the authorities might put him back in the zoo.
The zoo, wow. That was his specific coded reference to the psychiatric institution.
Exactly.
That's incredibly powerful. It's so subversive, almost defiant for the time, using humor to sort of defang the horror of the experience. It signals that he retained control over his identity, even if his mind felt chaotic.
And he spoke so openly about the internal mechanics that drove his improvisational style. There's that quote, "These voices are always screaming to get out. They follow me around pretty much all day and night."
That quote, more than anything else, it just redefines his improvisational style, doesn't it? It suggests that the bottomless reservoir of creative energy wasn't just an artistic choice, it was a necessary survival mechanism.
Absolutely.
The characters were like an essential release valve for the constant chaotic chatter of those internal voices. It really makes improvisation feel like necessary therapy for him.
And that profound dynamic, that's what bonded him so deeply with Robin Williams. This is the relationship that every improviser today still references. Williams didn't just call Winters his idol. He explicitly referred to him as his mentor.
Williams understood that process better than almost anyone you'd think. He offered this deep, invaluable insight into Winters' creative engine, observing that the characters were a great way for Winters to talk about painful stuff.
Yeah, that's key.
Williams understood that the personae weren't just random inventions. They were often based on real, difficult, sometimes traumatic people in Winters' own life, like his mother or his aunt.
It connects the emotional truth of the painful past directly to the comedic genius of the present. Williams saw that the characters were these carefully crafted observations of human dysfunction, just channeled through chaos. And the relationship resulted in that famous, utterly bizarre collaboration on the sitcom Mork and Mindy.
Right. Winters joined the show for its fourth and final season in 1981, playing the role of Mirth, Mark and Mindy's child. And the writers, they had to invent this truly complex Orkin physiology just to justify how this adult man could possibly be Mork's newborn son.
The explanation is legendary in sitcom lore, isn't it? Mork, being an Orkin, he lays an egg.
Right, an egg.
Which then hatches not into a baby, but into the much older Jonathan Winters. The absurd explanation was that Orkins aged backwards.
It was just a bold, maybe desperate attempt to pair the two improvisational titans, right? Recognizing that the only way to integrate Winters' unique talent was through complete science fiction absurdity.
Pretty much. Although the show was already struggling and that season ended up being the last, it still remains this testament to their shared frenetic energy and the mutual respect they obviously had for each other. It's hard to imagine two comedians who could possibly match that pace on screen together.
Totally. Let's shift now to Section 5, covering his film, television, and other artistic output, which often had to contend with that unpredictable brilliance we've been talking about.
Yeah, and it's crucial to acknowledge the paradox here. Because of that beautiful unpredictability, Winters was often viewed by cautious producers as a potential liability.
Duh, I bet.
He was this force of nature that was just impossible to totally structure on a tightly controlled script or budget. Yet despite this, he managed to maintain a truly memorable film career.
His most recognized film role is absolutely Lenny Pike, the frantic demolition derby driver in Stanley Kramer's epic comedy. It's a mad, 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 mad world from 1963. He got a Golden Globe nomination for that performance.
That film was notorious for its gigantic ensemble cast of comedy legends, right? But the anecdotes from the set, they confirm Winters' unique status even among them. Co-stars like Arnold Stang recalled that during the incredibly long periods waiting between scenes, which were common on a production, that huge Winters would spontaneously entertain the cast and crew for hours in the trailer.
Just performing, not practicing lines.
No, performing. Stang specifically noted that Winters would instantly become any character suggested to him by the other actors. He was performing constantly, maybe simply because those internal voices needed an outlet, showcasing the same spontaneous genius he displayed on Carson, but just for the crew.
That's amazing. He also showed remarkable versatility, though. He took on dual roles in the 1965 film adaptation of Evelyn Waugh's novel The Loved One.
Oh yeah, playing both the wealthy funeral home owner, Henry Glenworthy, and his dark, scheming brother, the Reverend Wilbur Glenworthy. He proved he could handle nuanced dramatic weight alongside the chaotic comedy.
And his dramatic range often gets overlooked, I think. He appeared in that classic 1961 Twilight Zone episode, A Game of Pool.
A great one.
And much later in his career, he took a serious role as Wainwright Cranston, the secular police chief and uncle of the main character, in The Shadow in 1994.
Right. The shift from Maude Frickert to a quiet, dramatic police chief is pretty astonishing when you think about it.
Definitely. Despite the film industry's difficulty in maybe containing him, his heart seemed to remain in the variety show format that allowed him maximum freedom. From 1967 to 1969, he helmed his own hour-long weekly variety program, The Jonathan Winters Show.
Yeah, that show is a great platform for his characters and sketches, like Maude Frickert and Elwood P. Suggins. But it also included some truly unexpected guest stars, including The Doors.
The Doors. On The Jonathan Winters Show, that cultural mashup of a classic character comedian hosting this psychedelic rock band gives you a real sense of his wide appeal and maybe his willingness to just embrace chaos.
He often included an audience requests section too, where he'd take suggestions and perform totally off-the-cuff impressions in absurd situations, like John Wayne on the Moon.
John Wayne on the Moon, classic. It was just pure, raw, creative energy delivered live on CBS.
And his later television success did cement his ability to structure that genius somewhat. In 1991, he won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series for playing Gunny Davis, the eccentric grandfather on that short-lived sitcom, Davis Rules.
Davis Rules, right. That Emmy confirmed that he could succeed even within the, the strictures of a multi-camera sitcom when the role was right.
And, of course, we absolutely must discuss the Smurf connection, which kind of serves as a funny bookend to his long career. He was the voice of Grandpa Smurf on the Smurfs TV series from 1986 to 1990.
Grandpa Smurf.
And then, incredibly, he returned 2 decades later to voice Papa Smurf in the live-action films, The Smurfs in 2011 and The Smurfs 2 in 2013.
Wow. So he introduced his voice work to a completely new generation of kids right at the end of his life.
Pretty much. Finally, we have to emphasize that this drive to create wasn't limited just to performance. He was a dedicated visual artist and author. He spent significant time painting, presenting his silkscreens and sketches in numerous gallery shows and exhibitions.
That suggests that if the internal pressure couldn't be channeled through a character, it maybe needs to be channeled through the canvas or the page, right?
Seems likely. He published Winter's Tales, Stories and Observations for the Unusual in 1987, and a collection of his artwork, Hang-Ups, Paintings by Jonathan Winters in 1988. He was truly a multidisciplinary artist, driven by this constant, maybe overwhelming need to express those internal voices.
That constant drive really ensured that his influence wasn't confined to his own generation. Which brings us neatly to Section 6, Legacy, Final Thoughts, and his ultimate self-assessment.
Yeah, the list of comedians he inspired is basically a roster of modern comedy royalty.
Yeah.
Robin Williams, of course, tops that list, but also Johnny Carson, who just understood him implicitly. Billy Crystal, Tracy Ullman, Lily Tomlin, Steve Martin, Jim Carrey, Jimmy Kimmel.
It's huge. When you watch the spontaneous, character-driven work of someone like Carrey or Crystal, you are seeing a direct line right back to Winters.
He established the foundational blueprint for improvisational sketch and character comedy. Winters died of natural causes on April 11, 2013 at the age of 87.
87. A long life.
And in a fitting final tribute, The Smurfs 2 was actually dedicated to his memory, as he passed away only 9 days after finishing recording the dialogue for Papa Smurf.
Ooh, literally his last project. The tributes that followed were immense, but none felt quite as heartfelt or revealing as Robin Williams' social media post. It summarized their relationship and Winter's significance just perfectly.
Yeah, what did it say again?
Williams wrote, "First he was my idol, then he was my mentor and amazing friend. I'll miss him huge. He was my comedy Buddha. Long live the Buddha."
Comedy Buddha. That's perfect for Winters. So what does this all mean for us, for you listening? The enduring relevance of Jonathan Winters, I think, is that he fundamentally proved that true, lasting comedic genius comes not from tight scripts or focus group material,
Right.
but from deep observation, disciplined writing, and the radical freedom to pursue the completely spontaneous. He showed that you can, and perhaps must, embrace your own complexity and vulnerability, even if being wildly unpredictable often made him, a headache for the systems that tried to contain him.
His legacy is really an argument against conformity, isn't it? You don't have to fit into some standardized box to achieve success, but you do have to find your own definition of success. And his self-assessment of his place in the entertainment industry Olympics is the perfect summation of his unique career path.
Oh yeah, that quote. He was once asked where he placed himself among the great comedians, and he gave that memorable analogy about the Olympics. He claimed his place was inside the box, underneath the guy receiving the gold medal. I'm fondling a platinum medallion.
Fondling a platinum medallion. He knew he was the raw, unclassifiable gold standard that couldn't really be quantified by traditional metrics. He was the essential, maybe hidden foundation of modern character-based improv and sketch comedy, even while collecting all those institutional awards himself.
That willingness to just go his own way, to stick his head out, it defined his professional career and his journey through his public mental health struggles. He left us with a few gems of wisdom, too, that apply to perseverance and taking initiative in pretty much any field.
He told us, if your ship doesn't come in, swim out to meet it, which is just a powerful call to action, urging self-reliance.
And my favorite, which really speaks to his own cautious yet somehow inevitable forward movement. Behold the turtle. The only time he makes progress is when he sticks out his head.
That bravery, that willingness to be vulnerable and expose the chaos of his mind and then turn it into brilliant art, it defined his entire career. And we are sort of left to wonder, in an era like today, obsessed with polished narratives and controlled brand images, where authenticity is so often curated? Could a comedian with such raw, unfiltered genius and public vulnerability actually break through today?
It's a great question. His greatness was maybe rooted in the fact that he was simply incapable of being filtered. We really encourage you, if you haven't, seek out his appearances on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. Just witness the pure, unscripted spontaneity that launched 1,000 other comedy careers. That level of risk and invention is truly something to behold.